from Utah's first TV station. ABC4 News celebrates 75 years.
It was 1948. Salt Lake got something only found in 12 other cities across the country: television.
This is the story of how Utah's first TV station, what we all know now as ABC4, hit the air.
Oh, and now 75 years later, we're going to open the vault and take a nostalgic look at the electronic mirror of all of us, the TV generation.
Hello and welcome to this special ABC4 News presentation, the kickoff to our 75th anniversary of television broadcasting in Utah.
We are so proud to be Utah's first television station, a pioneer in our industry, and literally the ones to push the power button on TV here in Utah. And of course, we could not tell this story without the help of our station historian, Craig Wirth. Craig, so great to see you.
Hey, thank you. You know, this is all about us. We are the folks who grew up on television. You know, I remember my mother saying, "Don't sit so close to the TV." That's always what I remember about television. So you know what? I came to work in TV.
And you know what? Perfectly put. I remember we have so many kids in our family, and we would all fight over the station, but not every station came in clearly. We had to hit the dial exactly right to get the right station.
My, how things have changed. I was always the kid who wanted to go home from elementary school and watch the newscast.
Oh, geez.
But I remember one of my fondest memories and earliest memories of TV was when President Ronald Reagan was shot.
Oh, wow.
And they brought televisions into the classroom so that we could, as students, watch what was unfolding that day.
Wow, a moment you don't forget. We all have those early TV
sure,
memories.
Yeah.
We all certainly do. You know, our station actually goes back many years before 1948. We know our promotion-driven owner put on TV demonstrations. Can you believe this? In 1939.
I cannot believe it, but I'll take your word for it. We have those pictures of the demonstrations. They were like tent revivals with thousands of people crowding in to see them.
And Craig, as you just said, all with our owner, Sid Fox, who did it with a flair for promotion.
A man named Sid Fox had to be one of Utah's most colorful promoters in the 1930s and 40s. He owned a radio station. He threw lavish parties and hung around with stars. Oh, and he smoked expensive cigars. He also hired a photographer to follow him day and night, his own paparazzi, and even saying goodbye to the radio station bowling team. You gotta love his promotions for his radio station. He once buried a live person and had crowds parade past a wooden shaft to see her, of course, as she listened to his radio station. He was Utah's P.T. Barnum. But television, that was his ultimate promotion. Yes, TV, a brand new invention. Oh, that would be swell. By 1939, there were traveling TV tent shows. Wow, they were packing them in, like electronic traveling medicine shows. The biggest was from RCA at the New York World's Fair. Sid joined the crowds. Oh, this could be the greatest promotion ever.
Sid owners in metropolitan New York enjoy the novel experience of receiving pictures through the air.
All the great catchwords of promotion were there.
The research problem of yesterday is the radio marvel of today. Another milestone of progress has been passed, and science has made a reality of the age-old dream of pictures from the sky.
Well, Sid simply had the whole RCA kit and caboodle hauled to Utah. Yes, in 1939. Of course, he billed it as the modern miracle of science. He posted circus-type bills. You've heard about television. You've talked about television. Now it's here. It's today's magic word, the miracle of science. The 1939 newspapers proclaimed, "Swaddling radio gets its eyes open." Oh, Sid was at work. He got the old Paris department store to use as his stage. This was his circus. Thousands pushed their way into the store. Yes, come see the greatest achievement of the 20th century. He had 3 TV sets. Come on, keep on moving. More crowds waited for hours for a glimpse of Sid Fox's show. The headlines were perfect. television show amazes crowds of Salt Lakers. First public show attracts thousands. Could you imagine the sight? 1,000 people here on 3rd South, all waiting to get into the Paris department store behind me, to see the modern miracle of science, television. Yes, this was 1939, and he put on a week's worth of shows on those 3 sets. A full week of programming that people could crowd in to see. He put out the world's first TV guide. He started with a newscast. He brought in a live orchestra and a group of dancers. One was a young girl, Lloyd Drexel. She danced on the 2nd floor while crowds watched on the 1st floor.
It was just remarkable, and people were standing around this one little set that would get static once in a while, and once in a while you'd see a picture, just in awe that, wow, that's from clear upstairs in this building.
And Utah had one of the first examples of TV ever. The set featured a small screen and a mirror that reflected the picture.
We thought if we could run fast enough, we'd see ourselves downstairs on the monitor.
Don't miss the thrill of television. Calling all redheads and twins. Be on TV. Oh my goodness, he crammed in more programming, every possible program. The papers were filled with daily reports of shows. People wanted TV. Well, we had programs and a program director and a camera and 3 sets. All Sid Fox was missing was a TV station in 1939. Well, they were kind of hard to come by, as not even New York City had a commercial TV station then. However, Sid Fox had indeed found his ultimate promotion. There was no doubt. He would have a TV station, our station today, as soon as he could. It was all tele-fun. It was all Sid Fox. Unfortunately, the government said, wait till after the war, Sid. There's a freeze on new stations, so it gave him a couple of years to dream up new shows. And to launch Utah's first TV station, which we now proudly call ABC4.
Okay, this is incredible. And what is so interesting too is Salt Lake was one of only 6 stations across the country that had a demonstration.
In 1939, that's true, and they had big signs, the miracle of science television. Well, it still is the miracle of science.
Yeah, that's what's so amazing. It drew so much attention because it was so novel at the time. Just everyone trying to get that first peek.
It has to seem to me it's sort of like a moon landing.
Yeah.
It was impossible to believe. Pictures in the air.
And here we are today. What a distance we have come.
Still pictures in the air.
Yes. Now the demonstrations were not enough. Our station has to build equipment to go on the air, all in a secret laboratory. That story next.
You're watching a special presentation from ABC4 News, celebrating 75 years.
We're having some nostalgic fun looking over our television history as Utah's first TV station and really one of the first television stations in the whole country.
And I am fascinated that our engineers really had to build most of the equipment from scratch after buying a couple TV cameras and a couple TV sets used at the New York World's Fair of 1939.
Yeah, back then there was no Radio Shack in the neighborhood. There was no TV repair shop either. So engineers were doing this during the war, which meant there were even limited supplies. Craig is about to show us it was all done there on site in downtown Salt Lake City in a building there.
And people were getting excited to even catch a glimpse of a station test pattern. Let's take a look.
Well, back during the Second World War, there was another building here along 2nd East and 1st South. It was the KTVX Radio Playhouse, and upstairs there was sort of a secret project going on. A team of top engineers were building homemade equipment for television. At the time, our company was the KTVX radio station. We had no TV station, but we would be ready once the government lifted wartime TV restrictions. The small inconvenience of not having a station, government license, or transmitter did not stop our owner Sid Fox from doing TV throughout the 1940s. Fresh off his triumphant 1939 demonstrations, he kept building interest. He took everything to the state fair and put up more circus-like posters. He now billed TV boldly as the scientific marvel of the age, for he invented reality TV, a talent contest, sound familiar, and the Teletot contest. Yes, who was the cutest kid in town? Now, we might not have had a station in the early 1940s, but we had a studio and a real cool neon sign at the state fair for the daily demos. Singers sang, cattle mooed, and amazed crowds just kept watching. Meanwhile, back at the lab, engineers kept making homemade parts to match up with the World's Fair cameras. A camera setup to film TV ads, some way to make a transmitter work, a studio to shoot station breaks, a way to put film movies on TV, monitors for the control room, and pieces of the control room for those homemade monitors. And the war ended. Returning soldiers got the first peek at the amazing stuff. And then they took all that fancy equipment and put it in an old building right here and put a fancy sign on the side. That building told Utah that television was here from a studio where the City Creek Center is now located. And they had that task to find perhaps the tallest building in town, to put a tower on top so you could broadcast to the whole city, or at least part of it. Yes, this was the tallest place. And that was Channel 4's transmitter location. The iconic city landmark was a TV tower. Now they were ready to throw the switch and to see if all the handmade equipment worked. This was also new, that the government could only issue an experimental license. Channel 4 would be called W6XIS. Well, they drew up a card and played an old record and filmed it all as a test. It worked. Fortunately, they saved that historic film. They announced they would be testing more in early 1948. More music and more test patterns. It was getting near time for that first night of programming.
And Craig, the thing is, they were not even aware that they were making history.
It was a job.
They did know about radio at the time, but that's a big leap going from sound to sound and picture, right?
That's correct, yeah. You don't just put pictures over a radio set and it becomes TV.
If only it were that simple.
Yeah, just fascinating how that all happened back then, though. All right, coming up, we're going to take a look at how our actual TV sets have evolved over the past 75 years.
You're watching a special presentation from ABC4 News, celebrating 75 years.
Now, the technology was not just in how our genius engineers had to build the equipment. Electronics had to come to your living room.
I know pretty much all of us remember the old TVs, back when they were TVs with real dials in big boxes, not like today's monitors.
You know, we are surrounded here, all around us, by 1948 TV sets, and we know that because they were the only sets in town then, and we know that they were all tuned to Channel 4 because we were the only station.
Only one, yeah.
And so we had 100% of the ratings. How about that?
How about that? Do you know one of the first TVs that I remember, and I don't know what year this was, but it was just a giant box, heavy, very heavy to move.
Yeah, I remember moving TVs. It was a lot harder back then, that's for sure. But much different than these ones from 1948, though, as well, when we started to get into the 70s and 80s.
Oh, yeah. These were like 6-inch tubes,
Yeah.
little strain your eyes, and they probably weren't the clearest pictures. But you know, as many of us know, the early TVs had a long way to go. But they were certainly whiz-bang technological marvels, and they did have lots of dials, a big box, and a giant glass eye that stared back at you.
See me at my best. See me on a Motorola.
Your eye tells why Motorola gives clearer, sharper pictures. For example, only Motorola has Glare Guard, the curved screen that eliminates up to 98% of all reflected glare. You'll find glare guard on the beautiful new Motorola's. Stunning consoles, handsome combinations, 18 Fashion Award-winning cabinet styles, like this Motorola Modern in Elsa Maxwell's smartly styled apartment.
Come with me, and I'll show you what every one of you can do single-handed. Here, you can tune in this wonderful new Westinghouse television set with just one hand like this, because it has the sensational new Westinghouse single-dial control. There's no more fussing with several dials. You just turn this one dial and you're tuned in perfectly. Picture and sound come in together just like that. And once tuned, this set stays locked in tune.
If you're still watching television on a small screen set, you're missing a lot. Here, for example, is a close-up on a 10-inch set. See how much smaller it is than my head? Now I'd like to show you the same close-up on a 21-inch set. There. Just look at the difference. She's as big as I am now. You can have big screen close-ups with RCA Victor's great new 21-inch model, the Master 21.
The few TV sets scattered around town, all that our owner, Sid Fox, hauled from the New York World's Fair, and all were built in the secret lab on 2nd East. They came together one night in 1948.
We have rare pictures and film of that first night of TV right after the break. Stay with us.
You're watching a special presentation from ABC4 News, celebrating 75 years.
It was billed as magic, and you know, part of the magic was our promoter and owner, Sid Fox, that kept tempting the audience with those chances to be on TV and those demos all through the 1940s.
To this day, it's still so exciting to see that magic and everything that goes into producing a live or even a recorded TV broadcast.
Well, a decade of planning was over, and Sid Fox put on his TV station. And again, the only station in the country that was privately owned. All the rest were corporate owned. Utah's first TV station.
The day had arrived. Almost a decade of building equipment and years of demonstrations. And now it was April 19th, 1948. The newspapers were full of announcements and advertisements. Salt Lake City would join a dozen cities across the whole country. Television was here. Pictures would fly through the air. Our station would sign on, starting almost 75 years of broadcasting to this very moment as Utah's first TV station. And at 8 o'clock that Monday in April, our engineers of the day threw the on switch, and by golly, it worked. A hand-painted card flashed onto the screens of the couple hundred sets. That night, more hand-painted cards would be dropped in front of the homemade graphics system. They announced programs and advertisements. Now keep in mind, this was so new, especially in the West, that the paper carried questions from people who might see this modern miracle of science thing called TV here at Channel 4. Will it broadcast on radio? No. Is my present radio adapted for television? No. Is it possible to tune television programs directly from distant cities? No, it will never happen. You will only be able to see your neighbor kids play the piano. In fact, one of the first shows involved the chief engineer's daughters playing the piano. Now, years ago, I asked one of them about the experience.
It was an important event. I never did quite figure out exactly what it was for, but because I never did see myself.
Or you saw the other neighbor kids tap dancing. It was all magic. But we knew from that first day that TV was swell. Here's how we knew.
You see, the Deseret News picked the two greatest inventions that were seen at the 1948 State Fair, television and the Massago-Mat. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. Okay, you can find enough rope jumpers and people to draw funny faces to juggle your TV schedule around 3 days a week. But how are you going to put this stuff on TV? I mean, how do you run these really cool lights?
The late Mark Hampson was on the crew that very first day.
We're all young guys. We didn't know what to do. We didn't have anybody to ask what to do because nobody knew what to do. So we experimented with everything.
So schools popped up on how to do this TV stuff. Oh, you could train for TV and radio electronics. And my favorite, radio, television, refrigeration, and air conditioning. Well, it's all about the same stuff. And the other issue, folks had to have something to watch all this on. That first day, you could buy about 3 TV set models, like the Admiral, for $299.95. And this is actually one of those TVs from April 1948. I guess since the knobs really didn't do anything, they just tore them out. But most had to see the Admiral set in a store window. You would gather around and watch, with people watching you. ZCMI had one in its window. George's Furniture had another. Come on down and see the first night of TV. And a tavern in Murray would get one in time for the fights. Oh wow, you could buy one for your own home and be so cool. You know, there were so very few TVs back then that the newspaper would do stories on those who had televisions, such as this one, a prized 1948, and people posed with their sets. And indeed, this is Mrs. Hiskey in front of an identical Philco TV. Now that's news. And we salute the viewers. And we salute those who put the station on the air that night. They were the pioneers.
What a wonderful way to kick off our year-long celebration of our 75th anniversary. Craig, of course, thank you for keeping us posted on this all and keeping the records that you have kept organized and able to present back to us. We appreciate it most.
And we are just getting started. You can see more on our 75th anniversary celebration right here on ABC4 every Sunday and Monday on ABC4 News at 10. With Craig's legendary Worth Watching reports.
All right, to be there back in the day, right? We'll also have another 75th special for you in just a couple of months. We are celebrating all year long and hope you'll join us. Take care, everyone.